aware of this marijuana solution.
I'm Robert Platshorn, and I'm on the marijuana solution because we're dedicated to the medicated.
Hey, everybody, this is Robert Roundtree with the Marijuana Solution, and we're dedicated to the medicated, and that's why today we're speaking with a very special guest, and that's Robert Platshorn. Those of you may know him how I came to know him, and that is through the Black Tuna Gang and the documentary that was really popular on Netflix and other mediums. But now he's doing some really great things, still tied to cannabis. What he's doing is working with an organization he founded called the Silver Tour, and that is going around and educating and raising awareness for the elderly across Florida and the rest of the nation. How are you doing today, Robert?
I'm doing good.
So could you give us a little bit of a background about yourself and what it was that prompted you to go ahead and start the Silver Tour?
Yes, I can. I did more time for pot than anybody in history. I served 30 years straight in a variety of federal prisons. And when I got out, I published a book called Black Tuna Diaries, full of smuggling stories and stories of my years in Europe when I started speed reading schools and did a little bullfighting and all kinds of good stories. And I went out on the road, and I was at Hempfest speaking on the main stage. I had a couple of thousand people in front of me, and I was telling smuggling stories and prison stories, and everybody was having a good time. And it was a great audience. And I just looked out, and I had an epiphany, a for real epiphany. And I looked at the audience and I said, you know what? I'm wasting my time talking to you people. And all of a sudden it went dead silent. I said, I can see that you're all on my side already. I need to be talking to other people to make sure that no one like me ever goes to prison again for a weed. And that's when I decided that the book and, the movie Square Grouper, that was all great and gave me 15 minutes of fame, but it also gave me a following to start with. And then I had to decide what I wanted to do. If I wanted to use my 30 years in prison to make a difference, that was the time to do it. And I was looking around to find my niche right at the time that Prop 19 was on the ballot in California. And I jumped in and I tried to convince people. I did some radio and some TV and told people that, look, if you don't pass Prop 19, you're going to set the whole movement back maybe as much as 10 years. Wow. I said, here's our first chance for full legalization. If you reject it, I can guarantee you within a month, the feds will be closing doors in California. And everybody laughed at me and they said, nah, you don't know. Nobody's ever going to mess with us out here. We've had it 15 years. Well, of course, a month after Prop 19 went down the drain, 2 prosecutors in California started cleaning up grows and dispensaries and putting people in the pokey again. And it really did set us back for quite a while until Colorado finally put us back on track. Anyway, I looked at the exit polls in California to see why Prop 19 didn't pass, because it seemed a natural. And what really shocked me was the only reason it did not pass was the senior vote. No other reason. I looked at exit polls from every county in California, and it was consistently seniors who voted it down, and it only missed by 6 points. I looked around and I realized nobody's talking to seniors. Nobody's trying to include them in the conversation. And it was obvious that more than anyone, seniors have more legitimate uses for cannabis than any other demographic group. Besides, that's my generation. We invented cannabis for white people. Now you think about that. Cannabis was not a popular drug until we started bringing in large amounts of really good weed. And it all changed. Bringing in the weed from Colombia like I did, weed from Hawaii and Thai stick. It was the first time that good weed was really available on any scale. I can remember in my youth trying Mexican ditchweed, and the only way you could get high with it was to climb up a ladder while you smoked it.
Yeah, that's the truth.
And that's what was around. Marijuana belonged to the jazz age and mostly black musicians. But it all changed in the 70s. And anyway, I thought about it and I said, somebody's got to talk to seniors. And I looked in the mirror and I realized I might be a senior. And I'm an old pitchman. I was making infomercials before Ron Popeil.
Wow.
I made the first infomercial for Ginzu knives. You know, you cut chicken and ham, you cut turkey and lamb, you cut a cow in half with this knife, lady. That's no bull.
Oh, yeah, I remember those commercials.
Yeah, I'm an old boardwalk pitchman. So I figured it falls to me to start the senior route. And I started the Silver Tour, which is a 501c3. It's a nonprofit. Nobody gets paid, no salaries. I've been trying to get a salary out of me for a long time and still haven't made it.
Well, hopefully that will change one day for you.
If every cent we've gotten in has gone for media. In the beginning, I started doing live shows at senior communities. Not nursing homes, not where people have a drip in their arm and a drool in their mouth, but it's senior communities where people still play tennis, play golf, or go out to work. In Florida, we call them over 55 communities. I like that, over 55. That's I think what ARP has changed to as well, or over 50.
Oh, has it?
AARP. Yeah, now it's an over 50 group.
Oh, okay.
That works for all of us. It sounds better, and it makes people realize that most of us are still very active.
Absolutely.
I'm 74. I've already put in a 12-hour day, and I've got a few more hours to go arranging advertising for our big benefit in Atlantic City. Anyway, I started the Silver Tour, and in the beginning, I couldn't even get into a senior community to put on a show. We wanted to bring a doctor and a nurse and patients and lawyers and politicians.
And around what time was this when you started?
This was like 5 years ago.
Okay.
And for the most part, the senior communities would say, no, our people have no interest in anything like marijuana. We don't want you here. And I remembered reading an article years ago while I was in prison about Reform Judaism adopting medical marijuana as one of their planks, one of their platforms. But they never had anybody to speak for them. I called their headquarters in New York and said, I live in West Palm Beach, and I want to go around to the big synagogues here and talk about medical marijuana. And within 24 hours, I had a gaggle of rabbis calling me, come to our synagogue. And I put on the first few really big Silver Tour shows in big synagogues in South Florida. The first one I put on, the Wall Street Journal turns up, and they interview people going in. Why are you here? And what are you doing here? And the answers were, oh, my grandson sent me, or I come for the free food, or because I give everybody a buffet at a live Silver Tour show, and free food for seniors is a big deal.
Absolutely. Everyone likes a good free meal.
Just
especially
occasionally,
if you're on a fixed income.
Yeah. And a few people would occasionally say, well, I kind of heard about it. I was interested. But most people feign disinterest. And then at the end of the show, after hearing doctors and patients and a lawyer telling them how to change the law here in Florida, they were interviewed coming out. And coming out, they were absolutely indignant. I'm old enough to make up my own mind, and why can't I try this medicine? And it might help me get rid of all the pills I'm taking. And they were really indignant. That, by the way, that video that the Wall Street Journal did is still up on their website.
Okay,
and it still gets a
know.
ton of hits. And of course, they put it in the paper, and it was a front page story, which amazed me. And from there on, it got easier. CNN Money came in and did exactly the same thing. Interviews before, interviews after, shot part of the show. And they had it on from one end of the country to the other. It was like an 18-minute piece, which is huge, in a half-hour format. And it got easier. And then I was on Jon Stewart's Daily Show.
Yeah, that's a big one to be on.
Yeah, that really busted it open. They came down. They videoed an entire Silver Tour show. They interviewed people. They made fun and they made jokes, but it was very clear that they really were on our side.
That's
and
excellent.
It reached a lot of people. And what all that publicity has done has made seniors comfortable with the subject. That was 90% of the problem, getting them out of the closet.
Absolutely.
If I could ask people to close their eyes and then raise their hands if they smoked pot when they were in college or if they used to smoke pot, half the seniors in the audience would raise their hand once they were comfortable that the DEA wasn't in the back of the room, because they're a little paranoid as well.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, and as it turned out, in these communities I was doing live shows, people would turn around and look at each other and realize their next door neighbor was busting a doobie every now and then, and so were they, but they were both denying it. And so they'd come out of the closet, and in the end, it's where can I get some good weed? Big difference from we're not interested to where can I get good weed? And of course, most of the questions would be medical. Where can I find a doctor who give me a recommendation? Does it is there any conflict between weed and my current medicine? And they'd have a lot of questions for the doctors I'd bring. The shows were great, but as they got popular, I realized I couldn't get around to all these communities. There were just too many. And just at that time, I got a new parole officer who said, cancel all your travel. I'm not on parole anymore, but I was at the time.
Oh, wow. How helpful.
Yeah, I had just come back from the Patients Out of Time conference in Arizona. And I had been traveling to all the High Times Cannabis Cups. At the time, I was writing a column for High Times, a senior column. And I'd go to all the High Times Cups, and I'd sell my books, do a book signing, and made a living that way. And they cut that all off. And I said, okay, you want to cut me off and stop me from what I'm doing? Watch what I do now. Because I was making infomercials before Ron Popeil. And I made a show, a condensation of our live show called Should Grandma Smoke Pot? It's got great doctors and you know, half the people in it you'd probably know by face, and it's got the whole story of why pot is illegal and why it should be legal and all the medical reasons. Anyway, you can find it on YouTube, Should Grandma Smoke Pot? It's had about 90,000 hits on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll definitely link to that.
And it's a very high quality, high def show. In any case, I ran that in about 20 states in infomercial slots. Thanks to our donors. But people don't realize I can buy infomercial slots, half hours, anywhere from $50 to $150. You can reach a lot of people for $150.
Oh yeah.
In a half hour infomercial. You see, those slots are only sold to infomercial producers. They have no sales cost, no production cost, no cost of any kind. So if a station has, say, 10 slots a day for infomercials over 24 hours, that could be $1,500 times 365 days a year.
Yeah, that's a pretty good amount of money.
Yeah, that might be the whole profit for the whole station. But, you know, otherwise those same half hours would cost $500, $1,000, $5,000, depending on what station it is. So.
Oh yeah, the radio is the most expensive form of advertising.
No, that's TV.
Well, or yeah, except for TV. I mean, they're just outrageous.
Yeah, I'm talking about television.
Oh yeah,
I buy half hours on TV.
Sorry.
For $50 to $150.
I'm stoned.
Up to $500 for a really top station. But that's an awfully cheap half hour.
Oh, I think that's a good deal, and I've never bought anything on TV.
Yeah, and I would put it adjacent to things like Oprah or the Golden Girls or shows that I know had the demographic I was trying to reach. Your lead in and lead out gives you 50% of the other show's audience to begin with, then it's up to you to hold it. And I ran that show over 200 times, thanks to our donors. Then 2 years ago, I took 150 seniors from the Northeast Corridor to Washington, D.C. to lobby the House of Representatives. And they had never, ever seen seniors show up demanding cannabis. Mm-hmm. And I knew it would get their attention. And they lobbied 400 offices. And then I threw a big reception in one of the big meeting rooms at the House of Representatives. And we had some senators speak, and Neil Franklin from LEAP and some great people. The windup is a month later, we get the Holder memo. Now, that's really what cracked open the door or kicked open the door for every state that's legalized or done anything toward legalization in the past couple of years. If you remember, most states would say, no, we're not going to consider it because it's against the law federally and they could come arrest our governor or whatever.
That's right.
It was all bullshit. But by getting the Holder memo, it changed all of that. They couldn't throw that up as an excuse anymore.
They're running out of excuses.
Yeah. So seniors made a really, really big difference there. And the Silver Tour has put up big billboards in a lot of states with a patient in a wheelchair, and it says, I'm a patient, not a criminal. I put most of those up. and I've run some really big rallies. And last year I did 8,000 60-second radio spots on the top iHeart talk stations, news talk, which is where the senior demographic keeps their radio when they listen to Rush and all
I'm sure it is.
Yeah. And I did 8,000 spots called cannabis facts. Stuff like, did you know, according to a recent university study in Florida published in the Journal of Neuroscience, cannabis not only delays the onset of Alzheimer's, it may actually cure it. In fact, according to a 25-year study at Ohio State University, Professor Gary Wank concluded people who use cannabis don't get Alzheimer's at the rate of others. Blah, blah, blah. There were 6 different radio spots, and I ran them 8,000 times with donor money. But I had to deal with iHeart. I'm an old radio TV guy, and I made a deal with iHeart to buy up unsold time, and I paid $5 a minute on the top iHeart stations. I used to have people call me and send me emails. How dare you waste money on the Rush Limbaugh show or on News Talk Radio or right-wing radio? And what those people didn't realize, that's exactly the audience you want. And I wasn't paying $400 or $500 for a 60-second cut-in to Rush. I was paying $5.
That's a pretty good deal.
Hell of a deal. I mean, I've been buying media for a long, long time. I worked in TV. I was a station promotion manager. I worked in radio since the middle of high school when I used to go and do booth announcing.
Excellent.
I don't know if that was my career, but I spent an awful lot of time doing it.
So you mentioned a few things. I find it interesting that it was the synagogues that gave you your first break to get an audience with the seniors, because it was an Israeli scientist that discovered the THC molecule back in the 70s. The event that you were talking about in Atlantic City, is that the Meet the Experts?
That's Meet the Experts.
Okay.
It's a business event, B2B event, primarily designed for people on the East Coast who want to be in the cannabis business and want a realistic assessment of what it'll take and what they'll have to do. The keynote speakers, Denver Relief Consulting, and if you know anything about them, you know they've gotten licenses for clients in like 35 different places. But they are very straight up about how difficult it is to get licenses and
extremely difficult.
What your chances really are and what kind of money you're going to have to put up to even try. But that's the information people are looking for. We've got the best tax and banking expert in the country, the guy who won the case for Harborside in California that went on for years. The government trying to take everything from Harborside.
Yeah, that's a shame, because what Steve D'Angelo is doing over there is really good.
Yeah, but the government really had their arms around it for like 2 years, ready to snatch the whole thing. And the attorney that won that case is going to be speaking in Atlantic City for us. We've got Dr. Dennis Petro, who's probably done more cannabis testimony than anybody in the country, and has led in the...
What was that name again? Sorry to interrupt you.
Dennis Petro, Dr. Dennis Petro from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
He's the guy who does the MS research. No, or muscular dystrophy, MD.
That's some important research.
Yeah. And we got Danny Denko from High Times to tell people that you can't grow marijuana in a flower pot and expect to be in business.
Yeah, that's never going to work.
And if you don't believe him, we got Mike Booton. You know Mike from Weed Country?
Sure do.
Yep. Now, Mike is known for telling it like it is, whether you like it or not.
A lot of times people don't like that.
Yeah, I know. But he's really good. And he knows his subject. We've got 19 speakers lined up, and it's 2 full days. We provide full meals for both days, breakfast, lunch, snacks, and at the end of a hard day of seminars, because we give them like 7 hours of work.
Oh, wow.
We give them a wine and cheese networking reception at both days. And some people, that's more important than the lectures. They get to meet other people from the business. I ran 4 of them in Florida. And the amazing thing to me was half the people managed to find investors, or investors find people looking for investors. And that wasn't a featured part of the conference. But that's who showed up. And a lot of people got help.
That's really good.
In any case, it's going to be a great time if they come in Friday night. We got a great rate from the hotel. The ticket doesn't include the room, but it includes full food for 2 days, and at hotel prices, that's a big help.
Oh, absolutely. Hotels can be really expensive on the food.
Yep. And if they come in on Friday, we're going to give them a big St. Patty's Day party.
Now we're talking.
Yeah. And there'll be parties throughout. Some of the companies that'll be there will have parties in their suites. And if we can find a sponsor for an after party, we'll have one good after party for the people who don't want to jump and run. But it'd be 2 days of work. I mean, 19 speakers is a lot.
That's a lot of good information to take in.
Yeah. And what I'm going to do is the first day will be an overview. We'll cover everything. And then the second day, I'll split it up into maybe 2 groups, or maybe even 3 groups. Medical, because we always get quite a few doctors. We got Bob Melamede coming, Dr. Bob.
Nice.
Yeah, he'll give them what for. Between him and Dennis Petro, the doctors that show up will get more than their money's worth. I mean, Dr. Bob's a whole education in himself.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely sounds like it's going to be really packed with good speakers and people that can really give you the information that's, been vetted already, because there's a lot of bad information in the industry, as I'm sure you're well aware.
I am. And every state on the East Coast has either passed new legislation for cannabis or has changed their regulations. Every single state. So we'll have lawyers to cover virtually every state and what's going on, from the new rec in Maine to Amendment 2 down in Florida, to the expanding of the New York regulations, opening it up to more patients and more doctors. The same thing in New Jersey. Pennsylvania is about to come online with medical marijuana.
It sure is.
We got Pat Nightingale, who's been an outstanding attorney activist in Pennsylvania for many years. Pat will bring him up to date on Pennsylvania regulations. He can tell them what they're talking about in the state capitol. for the future.
Yeah.
It's not a blue sky seminar. It's a gray sky seminar.
Well, that's kind of,
if you know what I mean.
yeah,
They're
absolutely.
not going to tell anybody how rich they're going to get. They're going to tell them how hard it is to get rich.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an industry like any other, and it's one that has a lot of eyes on it. So, there's just a lot of interest, therefore, a lot more competition, and it's not easy. I mean,
yeah, my buddy Irv will be there.
Nice. I saw that. I also saw that you had spoke about Amendment 2. I saw that I think Michael Minardi was going to be there as well from Florida.
Both Michael and Irv happen to be on my board of directors of the Silver Tour.
That's a pretty solid board. Who else is on the board?
Michael and Irv.
Nice. And you?
and me.
Yeah, that's a good board. We
had some others, but they moved out of the area. We had some other attorneys and doctors, but they moved out of the area. The three of us really were there at the beginning and will be there till the end. Michael and I are both directors of the state chapter for Normal. I've been a director since maybe a month after I got out of prison. I mean, that's the first thing I did. And there isn't much we're not covering.
No.
If you looked at it, you saw that we cover a wide range, including minority groups who want to be represented in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times minorities seem to get left out. There's a good organization that I spoke to, one of the members on a few podcasts ago. His name's Eric Range with Minorities for Medical Marijuana.
We've got one of the directors, Cheryl Murray.
Nice. Is that their general counsel?
She may be. I know she's one of the founding directors of that. One of the founders.
Yeah, I believe I may have seen her speak in Boca Raton when I went down there for a Florida Cannabis Coalition event.
Yeah, that probably was her. Fairly young black girl.
She's fairly tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I never met her, but
okay.
I got her picture up. Yeah, and we were going to have Sue Sisley, but it's tough. Everybody in the world wants her.
They sure do.
I know her, and we're good friends, and we hug and kiss, and she says, I'll do anything. But realistically, she's hard to schedule and expensive now.
Well, you know that with demand comes an increase in the need for resources. She has a really demanding schedule. She's always testifying before different boards, speaking.
I know, and her speaking fee really just goes to her research,
which is good. I mean,
which is good.
Yeah, that's a lot better than some of the politicians and what they do at their speaking fees or how they get them.
We're going to have a senator from New Jersey there. I can't really announce who it is yet until he confirms, but that's going to get us a lot of publicity, and it's going to provide some interesting information to people in New Jersey who are trying to get into the business and break up the cartel that the governor created there. Same thing in Florida.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's going on in New Jersey? I haven't followed it. I just know it's been fucked up.
Yeah. Inch by inch, they're forcing them to loosen it up and allow for more patients, more doctors, a broader interpretation of what qualifies. But the minute that Governor Tubby is out of there, there's a bipartisan coalition that's ready to go with a recreational amendment. or a recreational bill.
Well, that's where
And
everything's going.
Yeah, and it's going to pass, especially in any tourist state. That's why it's going to pass here in Florida on the next ballot. Mike Minardi is head of Regulate Florida, which is our new amendment for the next ballot, and we've already cleared the rec amendment with the Florida Supreme Court. Now we just got to get it on the ballot, and that takes money.
For those of y'all listening, it's 10% of the last vote, which would put us at about 700,000, give or take, and you need to collect about 30% on top of that. So you're looking at 1 million or more votes. Or not votes, but signatures on the petition.
The only way it ever happens is when you hire a professional polling company. And
yeah,
if you can't
there's
raise the
companies
money to do that,
signature
it's not going to happen.
collectors.
Yeah.
Like $3 to $10 a signature, depending on what the issue is.
Yeah. I think for Amendment 2, we paid $3 or $4. But it had to be done. I worked with the original organization, Puff'em, from virtually the day I got out of prison. I was going around with the petition for Amendment 2. In fact, in the beginning, I was the only living human in all of South Florida out petitioning for Amendment 2. And I didn't have any trouble getting signatures, but there was only one of me. So I talked our current senator from this area, State Senator Jeff Clemens, into putting in the first bill in Tallahassee, just to get some conversation going up there. And we did have a bill put in Tallahassee, and it was put in again each succeeding year. And each succeeding year, it got more and more co-sponsors.
It's hard. It's been a long fight in the state.
Yeah, but you notice there are even Republican legislators who are pushing for wider cannabis laws.
Yes,
Senator
absolutely.
Brandes,
yeah, I
Senator
spoke with him about a week
Brandes.
ago. He's a really forward-thinking Republican.
Well, I got that ball rolling in Tallahassee, and last year, I ran something called the Rally and Tally, and I got 450 people, and we took over the entire top floor of the Capitol building.
That's awesome.
All seniors and veterans.
That's even better. Two of my favorite groups.
And that's what makes legislators open their eyes and say, whoops, I don't care how much campaign money you got. If you don't have the senior vote in Florida, you're going to take a walk. And
that's a pretty accurate statement.
Yeah, and it's changed the atmosphere. 2 years ago when Amendment 2 was defeated, it was the senior vote. There was no debate about it. It was a senior vote, mostly in northern Florida. And then, what's his name? The drunk, John Morgan, who I gotta give him credit for getting it on the ballot. But he went on TV right after we lost Amendment 2 last time. And, of course, most of the time, he's dead drunk.
Yeah, well, what about that video that came out of him right before Amendment 2 in 2014? He was drunk and talking, spilling whiskey. Yeah, and but he was on there saying basically, "Come on, everyone, vote for it. Go get fucked up." And it's like, come on, dude.
Yeah, the only thing he ever said was, "It helped my brother. It helped my brother." Well, people don't relate to that. But after we lost Amendment 2, his first interview, he actually said, the only reason we lost was them old folks. He said, but don't worry, a lot of them are going to be dead before the next election.
Yeah, what
How
a
do you like
bonehead.
that? Uh, but the Silver Tour made a big difference in Florida. We have it now. I don't think we'd have had it without seniors in Florida becoming part of the movement.
No, absolutely not.
There's a lot of them now, and that's what I set out to do. So I'm kind of really satisfied with that. But there's a lot of fight left.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fight. And it definitely sounds like you've been successful at it because from starting 5 years ago and you could barely get in a place, the senior community is now the fastest growing demographic of cannabis users across the country.
Yes, they are.
It's catching on.
And mostly it took getting them out of the closet so that there wouldn't be any stigma or fear. And then convincing them that it was medically efficacious. I like that word, efficacious.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's medically efficacious. And there's not a senior audience in the country I can't look in the eye and say, if you take Ambien or Lunesta, raise your hand. Of course, 50% of all seniors are on a sleeping medication.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, and you tell them, look, you ever see the commercial with the butterfly? They tell you you might walk in your sleep and talk in your sleep. You might drive a car in your sleep. It could lead, your tongue will swell up. It could lead to death. And
that
the worst
doesn't
part
sound
is,
fun.
No, but it's true, and that's the warning that's been in their commercials for years. And the worst part is you don't get any rest, you don't get any sleep, any REM sleep, because it puts you in a fugue state. That's why so many auto accidents are blamed on people who are on Lunesta or Ambien.
Oh, yeah, all kinds of crazy stories.
Yeah, but you go into a fugue state, and if you get frustrated that you can't lay down or sleep, you tend to do another one. And if you do a second one, you have a good chance of dying. Your tongue swells up. And they tell you it could lead to depression. Well, what senior isn't friggin' depressed half the time? And that only makes it worse. And you tell them, hey, look, remember when you were in college, when you were younger, you smoke a doobie, you sit around, have a nice time with your friends, smoke another one, and get a great night's sleep. And then everybody nods their head, yeah. You get real REM sleep, you have great dreams, and you wake up feeling good. And that's really all it takes to put the final touch on a senior audience. The cancer stuff is good, or you tell them about people with Crohn's and how they can get relief without dangerous medications. You talk about
neuropathy,
the onset of Alzheimer's. Neuropathy is a big thing. There's plenty that's easy to sell for seniors once you got them there and they're willing to listen. And that's what I've been doing. But anyway, what has changed is, for some reason or other, people feel like the job is done. And the Silver Tour is having a very difficult time raising money. And that surprised me because there's no other organization that uses mass media. None. I mean, I do radio, TV, billboards. I run some of the most successful rallies. But I don't know. I've never been good at fundraising. I have no fundraisers working for us, which I should have, because I'm getting tired begging for money. So
there's some people I might be able to hook you up with. We can talk after the show, but they do fundraising.
I always thought that if I could show people exactly where every penny went and the results from the campaigns, that it would just get easier and easier to raise money. And I think it makes people think, well, hey, they're doing so good, they don't need my money. And yet, even normal, if you give money to normal, where does the money go? What do you get for it?
I've always
What's
wondered
it
that.
produce? I mean, Normal is a great organization. They've kept hope alive, for 50 years. But they don't use the media to educate people. Neither does MPP or ASA. They're
Nobody
chapter
really does on
organizations.
any type of
No,
scale.
no. They don't do it at all, really. Occasionally somebody gets a billboard up, but most of the time they don't know how to get a billboard approved. I've seen
Wow.
Normal have their billboards canceled because they just don't know how to handle it.
That's unfortunate.
It is, but if you work in the media and you know how to negotiate, and you know what'll slide through and what won't, it's really not difficult. I've had billboards with CBS all over the country, and yet CBS is the one that usually turns down Normal for a New York billboard.
Wow.
It doesn't make me that smart. It's just I know how to talk to them,
And that's important.
I don't get up on my high horse and say you have to take this. So
Well,
no,
that's
okay.
good, because a lot of times, if it was me, that wouldn't get you anywhere.
Yeah,
People,
but
people generally
that's
don't like being told what to do.
that's been Normal's attitude for a long time. Alan and Keith and they're in the right, but they're not doing it the right way.
Well, sometimes it takes a little finesse to be able to have the proper conversations, a little more politicking, maybe a little more diplomatic approach. Sounds like you understand that, though.
Yeah, I'm a pitchman. I'm an old pitchman. I'm a ham. I know how to talk to people and get audiences together and get their support.
And that's big, because it definitely sounds like what you've been doing is working. Absolutely. Could you tell people that are going to be listening to this how they could help out if they'd like to for the Silver Tour? Either, I don't know if you have volunteers, or most importantly, everyone listening, is they need money.
Yeah, we don't really need volunteers because
Okay.
we're using media. If I can reach 20 cities on the radio, there's nothing really for volunteers to do. But the website is thesilvertour.org, and it's got examples of all of our campaigns and how we spend their money, and it's got a whole bunch of buttons that say donate, donate, donate. And if your interest is commercial, I decided to run one more Meet the Experts, a big one in Atlantic City. It's limited to 450 people. And if we fill it up, that'll give the Silver Tour enough money for about a half a year of really good campaigning. And if we don't fill it up, I got to find some way to pay the hotel.
Yeah, if you don't fill it up, I'll be backing a car up to the back door. We'll be riding out. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Definitely sounds like it's a good value.
The line is, if you don't sell X number of tickets, you're in trouble. 'Cause
Right.
hotels are expensive, even in Atlantic City in the wintertime. And our guarantee is over $50,000 to the hotel.
And
So
could
we
you
got to
maybe
sell.
could you maybe say a little bit more, tell us about what it costs to participate, either as somebody that just registers to come absorb the information, or maybe a vendor?
Yes, I can tell you.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Like right now, we're on the early bird special. A ticket for the 2 days, uh, with full food, books, everything, parties, meals is $5.99, $600. Uh, the typical per day ticket in these type of events is $400 a day. That's what I charged in South Florida, and it was standing room only. I mean, we only allow so many people in. Uh, People felt that that was reasonable, and even in Florida, although there weren't people staying at the hotel, they were all local. Uh, we fed them, and it was pretty much the same thing. So 600 for the 2 days covers all the speakers, the exhibits, the meals, the parties, and it's a pretty good deal. They could buy a ticket for one day, either Saturday or Sunday, for $3.25.
And
Some
which
people
day
can
should
only-
that be? Which day is better?
Well, for people new to the business, Saturday
Okay.
covers everything. It's an overview. For people in the business or who know the business but want especially education in either medical or legal for the regulations in each state, or want a chance to meet with Denver Relief or some of the attorneys there who from the different states, then Sunday's a better day because I'm going to have to break it up into breakout rooms.
Okay.
So the whole thing gives you a lot of time to hang out with some really great people in the industry.
And a
Because
lot of times that's
everybody's-
the most important thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, everybody is there for the weekend. You get to talk to who you want. We're not going to sell more than 450 tickets. That's the limit. I mean, I could cram twice as many people in there in that big ballroom, but 450 is the limit. And that really isn't that many people hanging out with 20 speakers and maximum of 30 exhibitors. The exhibitors, you know, the big show in Vegas, the MJ Biz show, which
That's coming
just
up in
amazing.
May.
Yeah, I'm going to be a speaker at the next one, but the MJ Biz show is just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. You know, for somebody who spent 30 years in jail for pot. But they
I
had
can
like
imagine.
400 exhibitors, 10,000 visitors, and you sort of had to keep moving. You didn't really get a chance to spend time with the people that you needed to talk to because they didn't have time to talk to you. There were 9,999 people behind you.
That's a lot of
And-
people.
Yeah, and at this event, there'll be a nice mix of exhibitors and only 450 people, and there'll be plenty of time to talk, to mix, to party, and to work. And it's going to be a tremendous weekend. They get to spend the weekend with Bobby Tuna.
Yeah, that sounds like a good weekend. I hear you like to
Yeah.
go fishing.
I was fishing yesterday.
That's what a little bird told me. Man, did y'all catch anything?
Yeah.
Awesome.
One guy caught a mutton that was almost 25 pounds. Biggest one anybody ever saw, including the captain. I caught a mutton that was maybe 9 or 10 pounds. And the steaks that came off of it were 1.5 inches thick from each side.
Oh man, that sounds
And-
so good.
I caught 3 beautiful vermilion snappers, which will make just beautiful saute snapper sandwiches. And we caught some other things. I've been fishing out on the same boat for about 4 years and have never failed to have a good time and catch fish. Sometimes we take the whole boat when I got enough stoners down here. to party and take the boat. Boat only takes 12 people. It's a big boat, but they only take 12 people, so there's plenty of room to fish and a good time. Nowadays, I got to save up for a month to get a ticket on the boat. It used to be I owned 4 boats like that back in my smuggling days.
Well, those days
But
are long
different
behind
times.
you. Yeah, much
The days are
different
behind
times.
me, and I still enjoy fishing, whether I got to buy a seat on a boat or buy a boat. I'd like to buy a boat.
Yeah,
On
you know what they
Social
say,
Security,
bust
it's
out another 1,000.
Yeah, well,
I had to get rid of my
my
boat because it just sat. I used it all the time when I first got it, and then I got rid of it. Then my wife got rid of me, so I don't know. I was just having a bad year, man.
well, I'm lucky in the wife department.
Good.
If you read Black Tuna Diaries, you know we started when she was 15 and I was 16.
Yeah,
And
and I saw the documentary as well.
Very fortunate. Most people come out of jail, they have no one and nothing. I had nothing, but I didn't have no one.
Yeah,
And
that's a
I
lot.
also
That's
had
a lot
of
more
good
important than
friends.
something, in my opinion.
After 30 years, when people found out that I was out, I had people call me and ask, Bobby, what can I do for you? They'd send me 100. One guy sent me 1,000, said, get yourself a used car so you can go work. Don't try to pay me. You did enough for me years ago. And all the good deeds came back to help, not haunt.
That's good. That's
I
good that
was
you
very
persevered
fortunate.
through all that. I can only imagine that's a lot of time to have every movement of your life controlled and kind of dictated to you in a prison system somewhere. So kudos
Yeah,
to
it
you,
is.
man. I mean, hell of a story. I really love what you're doing. The senior population is definitely something that I think is going to continue to grow as a user base. There were some studies that came out, and they did some statisticians basically compiled data on a bunch of studies from all the different medical marijuana states, and they found out that overall seniors were having a better quality of life and using far less prescription pills and costing Medicare and Medicaid less money.
Way less. And uh, it's really gratifying to see all of that happening now. And I've been talking for a long time about seniors not only becoming customers, but the best customers and the best patients, because they're not going to go out and try to find sour diesel at $5 less a quarter. They're going to
Right.
keep going back to where they're treated right. And when they come through the door, somebody says, "How are you, Mrs. Kinsey?" And how's your grandkids? And how are you feeling? Did that sour diesel work? And would you like to try somebody who'll cater to them? And that's what I'm going to be talking about in Atlantic City, and that's what I'm going to be talking about at the next MJ Biz show, which is in DC, I think, in May or whenever.
Yeah, it's May, I think the weekend of May 20th.
Yeah.
Robert, we've already cruised through a whole hour. I'm gonna have to end it here because I've got to get back to my son. But man, that went by quick. Usually I'm like looking up, seeing what time it is. But not this time, man. We flew through some really good stuff.
Yeah, you just got to ask me a question and then slap me when you want me to shut up.
Well, that's what I had you on here for, man. You know, didn't need to slap you at all. You provide a wealth of information, like I was saying. This is something that I'm really big supporter of. I definitely want to try and have these conversations with some of the seniors in my family, but it's still kind of a no-go zone. Really
Let me
super
give you
conservative.
the website for meet the experts.
Yeah, please do. And let us know what the date is and the time and where it's located in Atlantic City.
It's at Harrah's Resort in Atlantic City. The website is Meet Experts, one word, .org. And it's March 18th and 19th. It's a Saturday and Sunday when nothing else is going on. And a great time to take it. I call it spring break for business people in Atlantic City. And it'll be a heck of a good time. It's an easy place to get to. And actually, it's a less expensive venue for attendees than most places they can go. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate
absolutely.
Aware of this marijuana solution.
I'm Robert Platshorn, and I'm on the Marijuana Solution because we're dedicated to the medicated.
You are aware of this marijuana solution.